Oh, hey, buddy, it's your old pal Scott, and this is Let's Talk Tabletop. Now, I'm sure many of you have wondered how you could efficiently and effectively run a massive apocalypse game of, let's say, 30 of your closest friends in your favorite war game. Well, I've got to tell you that not only is it possible, but I'll give you the secret recipe of what we've developed over the years at my convention, Shor Hammer, and it is one of our biggest draws of the entire convention. Let's dive into it. So, I wanted to do a massive apocalypse game at probably Shor Hammer 2 is probably when it started. Might have been Shor Hammer 1. And I decided that I wanted to include a ton of people. What we started off smaller. We started with about 20 people, not 30. And over the years, we've slowly worked it up to 30, which we had in the 2024 Shor Hammer. So the first year, everything worked pretty well. I wanted everybody to have a role, and we maintain this to this day. We prefer if people don't take all comers lists, like, oh, I have a flyer and jet bikes and troops and artillery and tanks and monsters. You don't want to do that because if you're trying to simulate a big group offensive, right? You really want to have a role so that your opponent, your players on your team actually rely on you. If you bring a bunch of battle line units and you can take objectives better than your average unit, then you want to be marching up there supported with your other players' elite units. Now, number two is that you want to be able to have objectives on the board, and we originally started off with a 24-foot long board. Okay, so it was 4 6-foot long tables put end to end, and we all played at one time. And the other main design philosophy of this is that you want objectives within reach that will benefit your entire army if one of your teammates has. So if there's a shield generator that can randomly put up a 4-up invulnerable save on any unit on your side that you choose that turn, even if it's at the far end of the table, you want your allies and you're depending on them to capture that shield generator so that the enemy doesn't get it and that you can get some sort of buff or your buddy next to you gets some sort of buff or whatever in key situations. And then you might be benefiting from something they're doing. So you really want to tie the entire force together. So those are the key elements behind all 10 years of doing this. You generally want people to have around 1,000 points each. And yes, that means there's 15,000 points on one side, right? In the most recent years. 15,000 points per side, but what it also does is it makes it simple. At 1,000 points, you're probably only going to have 5 or 6 units. You're not going to have an entire 2,000 point army to worry about. And it makes the movement phase, the shooting phase, every phase much quicker, and each player has less to worry about. Now, one huge pitfall. Originally, we did that you could always bring back, if you're completely tabled, you could bring back one unit that you wanted, any one unit of your army, and they could come back in from reserves and do their thing, right? That keeps you in the game. But we had a problem, is the year that we had infinite Helldrakes. And what we mean by that is that one of the players had been wiped out, and he decided to bring back his Helldrake for his one unit he could choose. So the Helldrake would fly across, shoot some stuff, and die. The next turn, fly across, shoot some stuff, and die. Next turn, fly across. You see where I'm going with this. And it got really annoying for some players. So then we decided, you know what? You can always bring back one battle line when you're completely wiped out. But you always can roll. I think it depends on what the mission is and all that. It's usually a 5-up to bring back any of your battle lines. So in your command phase, you roll a 5-up for every one of your battle line that are destroyed, and then they can come back. Another thing to think about is that sometimes, one year we had infinite bloodthirsters in our Age of Sigmar mass battle narrative. And what they did was very clever, but it was also very against the spirit of it. What one player did, he probably owned 6,000 points of Khorne Demons, okay? And he was playing Khorne Bloodbound. And at the time, you had Blood Tithe points. And it said any time that a model died on the board, keep in mind you're playing with 20 people on a 24-foot board. Any model, any unit died, you got a blood tithe point. Well, he lent out his Khorne Bloodbound army to all of his buddies, and we had about 5 people collecting a blood tithe point for every unit that died every single turn. And needless to say, they all maxed out their blood tithe points on turn 1 and were able to each produce a bloodthirster for free. And that, of course, had the order side of the battle shaking in their boots and going, "Oh my gosh, what?" And I immediately went, "Hold up, you have actually planned this." Because I know some of these players, and I'm like, "You don't own a Khorne army." So we immediately had to tone that back a bit. And if you looked at the box that he brought probably 15 bloodthirsters. And they would all be for free. So these original narratives with 20, 30 people ended up being like 9 hours, because the problems we ran into is that I had to basically time every phase. I'd say, "Okay, hero phase, get it done, people," and I would give them 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Okay, and then we had a scenario where if they were actively doing something, they stood up, but they had chairs behind them. If they were done for that phase, they would sit down, so I could look down the board and see who it is. Now, you can obviously tell that this is very time-consuming as an organizer on my part, and I have other tournaments and things running at the same time, so I had to really babysit these. And it worked well enough, but I knew that I could improve on it. So what I ended up doing over the next couple years is I broke up the boards into 4 separate boards while we had the 20 people, and now we have 5 separate boards now that we have the 30 people. And what that ended up doing is we still synced all the turns, but now, like, a lot of times it would hold people up and they'd take forever because I want to shoot this enemy, right? But you're also going to shoot the enemy. So I have to kind of just sit here and wait while you shoot the enemy and they shoot the enemy, because I want to shoot them as well, but I'm not going to target them. Obviously, if someone else kills them beforehand, I'll pick something else. But that a lot of times interrupted the game and made it far slower. So we slowly went from like 9 to 10 hours to like 9 hours to 8 hours, and breaking them up into separate boards also streamed it. But you're going to think, "Oh, well, that seems lame. You're not the same battlefield anymore." It was kind of a neat concept when you had 24 people. Au contraire, I actually came up with a solution for that. Each board had a central objective that would, in your command phase or whenever you scored it, you would be able to walk around to your teammates on the other boards, and you couldn't affect your own board. You could only affect your opponent, your teammates' boards. Essentially, the idea is that this battle is happening in the same region. You could like look over on that mountain and they're fighting over there. So they're close enough that you actually could target things over there with the ordnance battery or whatever. And that greatly streamlined things, but you still got the feeling that you're being depended on by your other teammates and you depend on them. And it worked out really well. But I knew I would be able to actually streamline it even better. And this year was the best, the smoothest it's ever been with the most people we've ever had. And I'll tell you how I did it. So we kept the you automatically come back with the battle line if you are wiped out, right? That was the best of what we'd come up with. You still got your battle line rolls, and that was still good. Then we broke up the tables, but you're still all in the same room. I mean, you're 5 feet from the other table, and you're all in the same region, so you're affecting each other. That worked out perfectly, cut down on the turn times. But we were still syncing turns up until this year. We would say, okay, turn 1 starts, right? And you all start turn 1. Well, at the end of turn 1, let's say one board is mostly shooting people, right? And it's much quicker. And they're not really engaged in melee. And this unit is a bunch of orcs versus a bunch of Khorne people. Well, the problem with that, obviously, is the minute they get into melee, the game grinds to a halt. So in 2023 Shor Hammer, we ran into a big problem where a friend of mine, his team was done like an hour and a half on turn 1 before the other teams are. So what we did is that every game, every board is not synced. So what I ended up doing is I would say, as soon as you, no matter whether you're on turn 2 and I'm on turn 4, or you're turn 1 and I'm 2, whatever, as soon as you get that, you come over here and you go, "Who needs help?" And I go, "This guy needs a 4-up invul," and you give it to me. even if it's in the middle of my opponent's turn, even if it's in the middle of my turn, it doesn't matter. And then as you play your game, then when the opponent takes it over the next turn, if they take it over, then they come over and go, up, you no longer have a 4-up invul. We could be in the middle of melee. And yes, we would finish the current actions that are going on with the 4-up invul, but the minute that this unit that's currently active stops attacking, my unit loses the 4-up invul, and then another unit on this board gets the 4-up invul. It worked beautifully, and I'm extremely happy that it was so smooth. Everybody said this year was the best year and the smoothest year. And do you realize that we played a 30-man, 15,000 point Apocalypse game in only 5 hours? You just essentially play a normal 3v3 game, right? You're playing a 3,000 point game on your board, and you just notify your buddies when they get an effect or not, or when the effect is taken off. It's extremely simple. So that's a cool feeling. Hopefully you can learn some of the things from the pitfalls that I ran into. And let me know in the comments, questions, comments, whatever your own experiences. Thank you for supporting the show, watching it, liking, subscribing. And thank you to all my beautiful, sexy, good-smelling Patreon patrons. Look at all these people. They're gorgeous, gorgeous people, especially Nate, especially Grendel up there. A bunch of people. Fraud Fishy Hates Everything. That person, yeah. So it's a lot of great people. Some say the best people. Some say at Congress actually recently said that this list of people right here is the best people. I don't know what that means exactly, but I think it's official. So if you want to join this list, go to patreon.com/Let's Talk Tabletop, and you can maybe be one of the best people.